Yes, it's true. He often abuses people who he later goes on to do deals with.
Yeah, that's true.
Almost as if it's an opening negotiation tactic.
We shall have to, yeah.
I find it unlikely he'll do that with the Pope, but of course, you never know.
Now, for the first time ever, a North American has become Pope. Robert Previs was elected by the conclave yesterday, and he's chosen the name Leo XIV on becoming the new pontiff. He spoke to crowds from the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican yesterday.
La pace sia con tutti voi.
Peace be with all of you.
Fratelli, sorelle carissimi.
Brothers and sisters, dear brothers and sisters, this is the first greeting of Christ resurrected, the good pastor who gave life for the Lord.
Well, Ruth Gledhill is the assistant editor of the Catholic newspaper The Tablet. Welcome to the show, Ruth.
Thank you. Good morning.
I assume that you had heard of Robert Francis Previs before he became Pope, but was he a very familiar name to you?
Well, not to me personally, I have to confess, no. But to our editor, Brendan Walsh, who was educated by Augustinians, he was a familiar name. And he actually was saying for quite a few days beforehand that he thought Previs was climbing up. And indeed he was in the general congregation. It did come out that he was, among the top 4 or 5 who might be there. So there was two or three favourites, and then there were these other people coming up from the outside, including Prevost. However, in the last couple of days before the result, we did back off in our office from thinking it would be him, just because we never thought they would choose a North American.
Yes, well, amazingly, you must have read my next question before the interview began, because you said amazingly, and it is kind of amazing that in, as it were, 250 years, as it were, of American independence, we haven't had an American Pope before. Why do you think that is?
Well, until Pope John Paul II, who was from Poland, they tended to be Italian, and certainly in recent modern history. And then, after him, you had the German Ratzinger, and then the Argentinian Pope Francis. But what's interesting about Pope Leo XIV is that he spent a large part of his missionary life as a member of the Augustinian order, is a friar, missionary friar, in Peru. So he does have a strong link with the Americas, and he had this bond with Pope Francis, who, from Argentina, and over that. And he's very much a man who, although he is Chicago native, he has international roots and international links. So he's really, really aware of the needs of parts of the world which the Church is really interested in advocating for and helping at the moment.
You've mentioned that he's an Augustinian twice. What is the significance of being an Augustinian Catholic?
Well, it's a religious order, and the Augustinian rule, Augustine of Hippo wrote that back in the 5th century, but the order itself wasn't founded till the 13th century. So in fact, the first British Pope, the only British Pope, Nicholas Blackspire, was followed the Augustinian rule, but because the order hadn't been founded, we can't say he's an Augustinian. So there's quite an interesting debate going on in the Tablet offices at the moment as to whether Pope Leo is really the first Augustinian, because do we count the first ever English Pope?
But what is the rule? What is the rule?
It's a kind of rule of service, a missionary rule, and of really, it's a mendicant order, religious order, which is basically, no possessions, nothing, really humble, living close to the people, close to the grassroots, literally, as well as the grassroots of the Church. So it was slightly in terms of ecclesiastical dominance of these things, or it was kind of slightly overtaken by the later rule of St. Benedict, which has become the well-known one now. That's the rule of the hospitality, or all the monasteries, would be very hospitable. But the Augustinian one predates it, and it's, I would say, really down-to-earth, humble order, one that's really, really rooted in service.
How long do you think it will be before Trump tweets that this Pope is a disaster?
Well, I don't think he will. actually, because two things. So Trump he sees himself as a deal maker, and judging by yesterday's evidence, maybe he really is a deal maker. And then we have this Pope who has declared himself from the very start as a builder of bridges. So he has been very active on X, formerly Twitter, and he's retweeted lots of criticisms of Trump and J.D. Vance in his time. So he has been critical, apparently, in judging by his retweets, of the migration policy and of what's happening under the MAGA thing in America, and of this thing that J.D. Vance got involved in. J.D. Vance is a Catholic convert, and there was this hierarchy of love debate when Vance was saying, basically charity begins at home.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of criticism from the Catholic Church about, wait a minute, charity goes beyond that. And so there is tension there, no question about it. Nevertheless, this new Pope is very much a builder of bridges. And I think that Trump will see this as an opportunity. Yes, it's true, he often abuses people who he later goes on to do deals with.
Yeah, that's true.
Almost as if it's an opening negotiation tactic.
We shall have to,
I find it unlikely he'll do that with the Pope, but of course you never know. He's totally unpredictable. But I think the Pope, even if that happened, would not fall into the trap of engaging in a war of words with Donald Trump.
Absolutely. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Ruth Gledhill, assistant editor at the Tablet, thank you so much for coming on, and actually a really fascinating interview about the new Pope Robert Previs.